Welcome to The Market That Moves America, a podcast from the National Center for the Middle Market. The center is the leading source of knowledge, leadership, and innovative research on the middle market economy. Throughout our podcast, we will feature middle market leaders and stakeholders to hear their real-world perspectives on trends and emerging issues.
Welcome to The Market That Moves America. My name is Doug Farren, Executive Director of the National Center for the Middle Market, located at The Ohio State University Fisher College of Business. We're taking a little bit different of approach with this episode. In The Market That Moves America, we typically bring on all types of subject matter experts, middle market company leaders, advisors, anyone in this ecosystem who has a shared interest with the NCMM in middle market companies. But as we approach the end of the year, we want to take this time to really talk about 2025, what it has meant for mid-market companies, some of the developments and things we've been able to accomplish at the center, and then take a look forward to 2026 and some of the things that we'll be doing and where we see some of the key themes and issues that will be affecting this important segment of the U.S. economy. So those are the three areas I'm going to cover. I'm going to start first with a recap of the middle market itself. So this is our 15th year at the NCMM. We were launched in fall of 2011. And when we get to the preview section, I'll talk a little bit about how we plan to celebrate that milestone next fall. But really, we came into this year seeing quite a bit of momentum and confidence across the middle market. The market itself had been on a hot streak. We're looking at 3.5, almost 4 years coming out of the pandemic of growth that averaged 12% across revenue and over 10% across employment. Very strong, consistent rates of growth. We also saw quite a bit of enthusiasm coming out of an election cycle, change in leadership in DC, brought with it lots of boosts to both local and national economic confidence. That being said, there were headwinds that existed. High interest rates, still burdensome inflation, high costs of doing business. All these play into the minds of middle market leaders when they're thinking about how to best grow their business and how to remain successful. Certainly with the new administration, there came policy decisions that we wanted to understand the implications to the middle market. And in the spring, we saw that there was primary impact to some of the trade decision-making as well as supply chain implications that affect many companies in our country, and the middle market was no exception. At the mid-year, we experienced significant insights into the slowdown across the middle market, where both revenue and hiring had decreased quite significantly, which then, of course, foreshadowed some of the economic data that was reported later in the summer and early into the fall. We're still not ready to quite proclaim our middle market indicator as a leading indicator of the U.S. economy, but in this instance, that was certainly the case. Middle market companies foreshadowed a lot of that impact on these businesses. As a result, leaders told us that they were taking a much less aggressive and I would say somewhat defensive posture when thinking about their business. What we saw, in addition to lower hiring, we also saw things like less investment of capital. In our surveys, we ask a question, what companies would do with an additional dollar of revenue. And historically, that has been about 65 to 70% of companies telling us that they would reinvest that in various areas of their company. It could be technology, it could be physical assets, it could be people or training or making an acquisition, all types of different possibilities. Well, that number flipped pretty significantly to where less than half of companies were thinking about that type of reinvestment of their capital. We are anxiously awaiting the availability of our year-end 2025 data. That'll be coming out in January at the end of the month when we publish our year-end 2025 report. And some of the things we're curious to see, does this sentiment remain the same? Are companies facing some of the same pressures around increased costs of doing business, some of the talent challenges that have resulted? We could spend time talking about a lot of the business transition that will be taking place over the next year or two, whether that's a founder owner that's getting ready to leave his or her business, a lot of consolidation and private equity and roll up activity that's happening across the market. And just in general, are these companies feeling at all better than they did 6 months ago? And how are they going to approach the beginning of this year? There is one thing that we know over many years of looking at these businesses, and in fact, personally, talking to companies as I travel the country at different events and gatherings, and learning really about how they think about their decision making. And we know that the middle market as a whole is a very, very resilient group of companies, partly due to its diversity, almost like a stock portfolio. It's diverse across, many different characteristics. You think about all the industries that make up the middle market. You think about the fact that they're in every community, every city, every state. They employ literally, millions of people across our country. And because most of them are privately held, well over 90% are private companies, they do tend to take the long view. So some of the short-term economic shocks that we see in the broader economy may not have the same impact as it would certainly for larger companies who can weather those and typically have the type of resources and perhaps capital reserve to weather the shocks. Small businesses are going to be jostled a lot more in these instances, as we saw during the pandemic. But for the middle market, it tends to take a much longer view. And generally, we can confidently say that a lot of these leadership teams tend to think about doing what's right rather than what's convenient or expedient, or certainly having, to answer to either Wall Street or, someone else. So that'll be kind of the things that we're looking for. The next thing I wanted to talk about was just the center in 2025. As I mentioned, it's the start of our 15th year. We're very proud of that. We're still the only middle market research center of our kind in the U.S., which is based at an academic institution at the Fisher College of Business, and we partner very closely with private sector companies who support the middle market in helping advance this knowledge. And our mission has not changed. We exist to help middle market companies grow by creating valuable content, by developing supportive communities, and creating programs that can help these companies be more competitive. I think about some of the other milestones that we have, in addition to new leadership at Fisher College, which has been exciting because of the re-emphasis on the value of corporate relationships. We are not immune or have not ignored the big changes that are happening across higher education. And being located in that space, we're fortunate to be at the forefront of a lot of that private sector partnership. And so it's continuing to drive those valuable insights and resources for the middle market that are going to continue to be our focus. We completed 2 middle market indicators. We're up to now 13 plus years of data. So we have most likely the longest, the biggest longitudinal set of data on the middle market in the country. We also did our second Canadian middle market report with support from our friends at Visa, where we collected data from 300 mid-sized companies in Canada in the summer, and basically explored a lot of the same issues around performance, growth, and sentiment, but also looking at specific themes such as talent, technology, international trade, these types of issues. We also published in the fall a first ever report from NCMM on private equity in the middle market. We collaborated with Future Standard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to collect data from middle market companies who had both used PE and been involved with PE, wanting to know what that experience was like, the benefits that they received, maybe some of the drawbacks and challenges, as well as those who aren't using it. What are the reasons for that? Is it just not a good fit right now? Is it not needed? Are there other concerns? And so, very interesting insights and takeaways on that for both the private equity and private credit domains. We launched a new content channel, which were case studies. For many years, we've known that middle market companies learn best from each other. We see that clearly in a lot of the gatherings that we attend and the events and the networking. Talking to a peer who's going through the same challenge or issue that you're facing as an owner or CEO can be hugely valuable. So, in that spirit, we have launched a case study series where we interview founder, owner, CEOs, and we ask them about a certain challenge or opportunity that their business has faced, the approach that they took to that challenge, and then ultimately what were the results. And so we've got our fifth case in the pipeline right now. We're targeting 6 of these a year. We'll be looking at different size companies, different industries, different challenges, with the long-term vision of building a library of these things that can be used in many, many different ways. And we're already seeing significant consumption of that content because, again, it's a lot easier to get some key takeaways from reading about a company than reading about potentially just research data or things that have been collected in a survey. We've participated in over 25 events this year in over a dozen markets across the country. Again, as the national center, we really pride ourselves in the relationships that we've built over time. And the fact that we get a chance to travel from coast to coast, meet a lot of these communities, where they're at in their backyard. And to the extent possible, we customize our presentations with data relevant for those communities. So that has been a great success and will continue to be a significant part of our outreach and engagement strategy. We also had the great fortune of being featured in some significant media this year. We had placement, all organic, by the way. These were journalists writing about the middle market who reached out to us as the leading experts, with pieces this year in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times, in Time Magazine. Our MMI press releases continue to be picked up by a number of different outlets to share the latest and greatest findings on the middle market. We also wanted to welcome Wells Fargo to our group of partners, joining Chubb, the world's largest commercial insurance company, who has been with us for over 7 years, as well as Visa, who we've been working with for the last 4 years. So Wells, definitely interested in that, being one of those trusted advisors who helped during the growth journey. They are working specifically with us on our middle market indicators, and we are really enjoying getting to know their teams and building some stronger relationships there. The final thing I'll touch on, well, actually 2 things I'll touch on. One, we continue to support a training and education program here in the state of Ohio called the CEO Forum, which was launched in spring of 2024 as a partnership between the Ohio Chamber of Commerce and the Fisher College of Business non-degree executive education team, with significant contribution and use of information out of the center. That has really been the differentiator for this program, and I want to send my appreciation to Steve Stivers, who's the CEO of the Ohio Chamber, for his vision and kind of bringing this to life, with the idea that this program continues to expand across the state. And I'll talk a bit in a minute about what that might mean even nationally. Finally, as I mentioned, with part of the change in the college leadership, we've also had the chance to engage a number of our faculty, whether it be as advisors on our research projects, as speakers at events, as guests on our podcasts, where we see opportunity of aligning specific expertise to the topics that we're looking at it only makes our work stronger and really adds to the body of knowledge. So I want to appreciate our faculty for being so supportive in the work that we're doing here at the center. The last thing I want to shift then and finish on is just as we look ahead to 2026, so some of the things that kind of we have on our radar, areas that we're going to be focusing on. So we're going to continue to launch, a number of different projects. We'll be doing our two middle market indicators, our January and July reports for 2026. We're also at the early stages of a project with CBiz, looking at how middle market companies go about making decisions and trade-offs. Very excited about this. I think we're going to get some really interesting data because we know that in the face of limited resources and some significant constraints, that a lot of middle market companies may be forced to put priorities on the back burner to pursue, some significant strategic objectives. And what does that mean for the business, and what are some of those trade-offs? How that decision is actually achieved. In order to mark our 15-year anniversary, we're also going to commission look back on where the middle market has been and how it has evolved over the last 15 years. There's been a number of course, milestones along the way. There have been, historical and economic events that have affected these companies. But by and large, they've remained very steady growers. But we're sitting on a mound of data. We're going to crunch that. We're going to analyze it. We're going to look at, some of the most significant factors and impacts across this time period. And we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to be able to do that, given our database of information. We'll keep the case study series going. We're going to look to do 6 more cases. Again, varying industries, locations, issues. Really exciting for us. I love the opportunity for us to interview, people who are running these companies. Because again, I think where we get the most value is from hearing about the challenges and issues. And while NCMM isn't necessarily designed to help solve the problems, we can certainly raise the issues and put them on the table for other middle market companies to think about, and then turn to their trusted advisors and resources to solve. In terms of this podcast, we'll continue on. We're now well over 100 episodes of The Market That Moves America. I think that puts us in the top 1 or 2% of all podcasts, having that length of time going back to 2017. And our challenge is to continue to find really interesting guests, really thoughtful subject matter expertise. We want to blend in more company leaders, as we're doing with the cases. We want to blend in advisors and, again, just people who have interesting information to share, things that can be helpful to the middle market. And, that's how we're thinking about our content calendar for the year. Internally, we're going to be relaunching our website. It's been well over a decade since we've done significant upgrades to that, and that's really all in the interest of the user experience. We have, a significant following. We've got about 40,000 people in our subscriber database. We get a lot of visitors to the website. We also know that AI is changing the way that information gets sourced and aggregated. So making our website, more AI promptable is certainly one of the goals. So something to be looking out for probably later in 2026. We're also going to be thinking about other educational programs. I mentioned the CEO Forum. There's been interest in scaling that nationally, so going to other states and kind of using the model that the Ohio Chamber has developed and working with other state chambers and partners to bring this educational tool to middle market companies in different markets and states across the country. So we are talking about that process and are anxious to play a significant role in that. We're also thinking about doing some new programming potentially later in 2026 or even early 2027, and talking internally with our partners across the college. We're talking with our corporate partners at Chubb, Wells Fargo, and Visa, and really just collecting a lot of feedback and insights right now about what could be things that are most valuable, again, to support the middle market. We're also going to be doing more market visits. I mentioned our ability to travel coast to coast, present at different conferences, gatherings, intimate dinners, lunch. We love that opportunity. It has a chance to get us out into the marketplace, really engage with middle market leaders. That in turn then gives us, new things to think about and areas to focus. So there will be more of that to come in 2026. So we are, gearing up for what's going to be a very, very busy next year. We've got a very aggressive plan. I think we've got great partners in place. We have a great team in place. I want to share our appreciation for our extended partners at RTI Research, who collect our research data, Rattleback, our digital marketing agency here, the support of Fisher College of Business, all of our working teams at Chubb, Visa, and Wells Fargo, who we interact with frequently to help support this work. And we're just really excited about the year to come. I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, and we'll look forward to talking to you early next year. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to The Market That Moves America. Never miss a new episode by subscribing anywhere podcasts can be found. You can also subscribe to our email newsletter at middlemarketcenter.org.